Valentine's Day. It's just around the corner, my friend. And if you're panicking, no worries. I got you. This episode is dedicated to making time for your marriage and where the heck we're going to find that time. So I know, because between the juggle of work and family and that never ending to-do list, you're probably wondering where you're going to find that time to have a meaningful and strong connection with your spouse. Often that comes last in that never-ending to-do list. So that is why I want to tackle this head on in showing some quick and easy ways that we can bond with our partner throughout the day, every single day, so that we don't have to build up these holidays of Valentine's Day or anniversaries or birthdays and put so much pressure on them and want them to be perfect, only setting ourselves up for failure and our spouses for failure, when of course that's not going to happen. So let's dive in. I have 3 C's that I want to share with you for how you can make time for your marriage. Welcome to the Juggle is Real podcast. I'm your host, Andryanna. A few years ago, burnout nearly cost me that happy, fulfilled life that I'd always dreamed of. Every day left me feeling overwhelmed with stress at work, at home, and just with life in general. I felt like I was constantly running and couldn't catch my breath. So I embarked on a journey of finding better balance, of learning how to prioritize my own needs, of shifting my mindset to live with more ease and balance, of learning how to do more without the pressure of doing it all. And I discovered that letting go of the need for a perfect life opened up opportunities to bring in more joy. So I am sharing my experience and my learnings with you so that you don't have to struggle. I want to show by example how liberating and empowering it can be to silence expectations, to learn how to live through the chaos of work and family with grace, joy, and ease. So what do you think? Are you with me? Let's get started. Hello, my friend. Like I said, we've got Valentine's Day just around the corner, and love it or hate it, celebrate it or not, it kind of makes us wonder and makes us think and perhaps reminds us like, oh yeah, like my spouse, my husband, my partner, that person, maybe we should, I don't know, do something to, communicate or build that connection or, spark that fire. And I will say that this is not an episode on, some sexy time in the bedroom, not that kind of an episode. This is also not a way to, reignite that spark and that flame. Lots of other great podcasts for that. However, what I want to talk about today is how we can focus on our spouse and make time for one another when we are leading really busy lives, when our plates are full and when we're on the go a lot. And you know what? Sometimes our spouse is the last person on the list, even after ourselves, because I know you are making time for self-care and I'm so happy that you are. So what I want to say is that, you know what? Valentine's Day is great. And I love to celebrate and commemorate the special occasions like Valentine's Day, like birthdays, like wedding anniversaries, or other special occasions. But that's not the only time that we should be making an effort, right? This is only a few days a year. So the harm in focusing only on special occasions is really that it's going to be built up too high. We're going to be putting those days on a pedestal, which is, just a recipe for failure, in my personal opinion. And from a relationship perspective, it's more meaningful to show and to tell your spouse that they matter in small ways, instead of just relying on those few events a year. That can just be so much pressure. So I know you've heard the saying, it's the little things that count, or little things add up. And so these small ways that we can show one another that we are making each other a priority, it really, in the end, just ends up building more trust within our relationship, more security, and better balance overall. Instead of feeling perhaps a little bit of neglect because, your spouse isn't paying that much attention to you, or maybe there's some resentment that can creep in, or just feeling so much stress with making those big days like Valentine's Day, quote unquote, perfect. So I hear you. And I know it's kind of like one of those, I don't know, rhetorical questions, right? Like, how can we make time for marriage or a relationship when there is always so much to do? And I know, you've got kids, you've got dogs, you've got a career, you've got so many activities and appointments, everything happening on a weekly basis. Your schedule is full, your plate is full. And I can certainly appreciate how busy life can get. Believe you me, I often joke that it's like my husband and I on some days we're like two ships passing in the night, and we barely get a chance to talk about anything other than what's happening or, what's ahead in terms of our to-do list. And that is why it is especially important to make time for marriage. Okay. We're not just going to find the time. It's not going to be just laying around. It's not going to be like at the end of the day, we've got all this time and we just don't know what to do with it. So that's why we have to make time. We have to carve it out. Now, you might be familiar with the book 5 Love Languages, which is a great book. The author is Gary Chapman. And in this book, he talks about quality time as the language that revolves around togetherness. It is love and affection expressed through undivided attention. The best part for me, that's all great and all, but when we're talking about this togetherness, I find that short bursts can be really effective. So, phew, take the load off, because we can do this in a short amount of time and it can still be meaningful. So I have found that I use these parameters of the 3 C's. It's easy to remember and it helps me to carve out short but meaningful time together with my husband. So the 3 C's that we're going to talk about in this episode are to communicate, to connect, and to celebrate. And I'm taking a sip of my tea. You can probably hear that. So the first C, communicate. You might be thinking, Andryanna, all I do is communicate all day with my spouse. That's all I'm doing. I'm in constant communication with that person. However, I would argue that 9 times out of 10, you're discussing the day-to-day tasks and the to-dos, you're arranging schedules, you're deciding who's going to make dinner and who's going to bring which kid to what activity. And so this is often where the conversation ends. But truly, to be on the same page means that you want to, understand and know, be in the know when it comes to your futures and sharing your hopes, your fears, your dreams, those goals and aspirations. So in order to do this, I feel like communication is key, but fitting it in is going to be the challenge. In his book of essays, Dr. Benjamin Hardy notes, and he's the author and he's written a lot of great books, and I know I've mentioned some of them in this podcast, but he describes that he and his wife do regular 2-minute visualizations every week. Okay, so they do a 2-minute visualization. They come together, and then after the 2 minutes is up, they have a quick conversation with each other to just share what came up for them in that visualization. And I thought, like, what a great idea. First of all, it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, but there's also, there's some structure to it. So it's not like, okay, it's communication time, honey. Let's just, open our hearts and then just share. I feel like that can be, kind of awkward, or maybe like you don't really know what to do. So when you have this goal in mind of having a visualization, putting a little bit of structure to it, and then you can sort of set that schedule around what's going to work for you. And you can visualize how you want to picture the week ahead. Maybe this is something that you're doing on Sundays with your spouse, or maybe you want to do a visualization to picture what the next family vacation is going to look like, maybe just a no kids holiday, or even into the future, what retirement hopes and aspirations you have. Really, the options are endless, but the communication within this structure is key. So that is what I would say. Our first C is to communicate, but to do it in a meaningful way that is beyond just worrying about your to-do list. So communicate, communicate, communicate. I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, right? So I feel like most people, and I'm not a marriage expert or a counselor. These are just some quick and easy tips that I feel can go a long way, especially when, you got a lot on the go. Because I hear you, I feel you. So let's talk about our second C. The second C is to connect. So how do we do this? And you know what? We're living in this world of constant connectivity, and we are more connected than ever before. And I think that you can agree with me in that it has become so much easier to just zone out with your partner. You're sitting in front of the TV after a long day. You might be streaming something. You might be binge watching something. You both got your phones out. You're scrolling and you're looking at your phones, and you know what? You're together. So kudos on that. But it's probably not the most effective way to connect with your significant other. So I did a little reach out on Instagram, and I was just curious. Like I truly want to know, like, how are you all making time for your marriage? And you know what? One of the most common responses from those who responded was that the first step is to put the phones away. And I was like, yeah, like that makes sense, right? The absence of technology can create connection. And because, you know what, we've got to be creative with it. We can't just rely on being entertained by television or by TikTok or whatever. We have to actually come together to connect in a more meaningful way. So the absence of technology can create connection through creativity. And I mean, I'm going to let you figure out what works for you and your spouse. But I mean, like, try taking out a puzzle, busting out a deck of cards, pulling out an old dusty board game. Last summer, we rented a cottage and it did not have TV. There was no internet. The days are long, but our kids still go to bed early. And so you know what? Ryan and I ended up, there was the game of life. It wasn't even our board game. It was there at the cottage. We busted out the game of life and we had so much fun. We had some snacks, a couple beverages. And you know what? As you're playing, there's a room for conversation and having fun, and things come up. And I mean, you know what? If you're super competitive and a board game might be too much, there might be some little arguments at the end if you can't get along, or someone's going to be upset. But let's start with the puzzle. You're both working towards the same goal to get the puzzle done. I mean, if you have the opportunity to go for a walk or to do things outside of the home in these small and short bursts, absolutely, whatever's going to work for you. But connecting in a way that's meaningful, that isn't related to entertainment via technology, I think can be a really great way to make time for your marriage. So that would be C. Number 2 is to connect. And the final C, when we're talking about making time for our marriage, I call it celebrate. Okay, so we've got communicate, connect, and finally celebrate. And in a busy family setting, there is always something to do. There's something to clean, something to re-clean. There's somewhere to be, somebody to pick up, carpooling happening. And you know what? We become wrapped up in all of the running about, and the conversations can look like, pick up milk on your way home, or, you didn't take out the garbage when I asked you to. And all of the focus is really put on what has to happen, all the things that we have to do in the future, or what didn't happen, the things that maybe were forgotten, or, when our spouse wasn't quote unquote listening to us and what they didn't do. And you know what? That is often focusing on lack and on, the negative side of things. So a quick and easy way to switch up the energy, to change this up, is to make a point to celebrate the small things that you and your partner are doing. Because the truth of the matter is that in the course of a day, you are both doing so much and putting so much into your home, your families, your careers, and you're both doing a really great job. So I suggest before bed every night, try sharing 3 things that you loved or appreciated about the other person in that day. So like, we don't have to make this long and drawn out. It can be quick as like, I loved when you poured me that cup of coffee this morning. It was really great when you took the kids sliding, or I really appreciated your help with dinner. Small things that, you know what, you really did love or appreciate. And your spouse is going to do the same thing for you. Recognizing those things, sharing those wins is really going to make you feel seen, make you feel recognized, and actually show your spouse that you do see and appreciate all the little things that are happening. And it goes both ways, right? So what we focus on expands. And when we're constantly looking to the next thing, or we are really nitpicking on the things that didn't happen, then we're kind of going down that negative spiral. And I'm not saying that you don't have those conversations, because those conversations are important as well. But putting some time and some energy and focusing on the wins and just having a little celebration is really going to switch up the energy and allow those good things to expand and grow. So, I mean, if before bed doesn't work, or depending on the schedules or shift work, you can try sending quick text messages throughout the day, whatever's going to work best for you. But making a note of and celebrating small achievements really makes you appreciate one another more. And it just helps you focus on the good things, which of course is going to propel more good things to happen. Because when your spouse knows that you love when they make you a cup of coffee in the morning, guaranteed they're going to do that the next day and the next day after that. And bam, you've got a beautiful start to your day. So, I mean, when we can communicate, connect, and celebrate for short periods and in small ways, it really helps us make that time for our marriage while also leading full lives in every other aspect. And I want to close by sharing something that was recently sent to me. And it came from a Facebook friend, and her name is Sarah. And Sarah has 8 kids, 8 children, y'all. And she and her husband really make an effort to make their marriage work. Like you, like me, Sarah will admit that things are not perfect, but they are doing things amidst all of the chaos. I mean, a house with 8 kids, they've got a bunch of dogs and pets and everything else. If they can make time for their marriage, so can you. She suggested looking to budget-friendly options, turning to things like Pinterest, not trying to recreate the wheel. Do a quick Google search for some quick and easy adventures. I saw recently, there's a trend on social media to kind of do that this or that date night. And it's, writing down things on a card where you can choose different restaurants or different, activities. You could try doing that for something that's quick and easy in your home that's not going to take a lot of time. The point is that we're not going to be just having time on our hands. It really is a process and something that we have to carve out space for. What is important to us has to fall within what's on our plate. And so when we can carve out a tiny little puzzle piece in that full pie, a tiny little sliver is all that it takes, because the more progress we make, the better we're going to progress. So that is it for me, my friends. It would mean all the world to me if you could rate this episode, write me a quick review. I wish you a very happy Valentine's Day, whether you are doing something or not, whether you're in a relationship or not. I hope that you are making time for you above all else, as well as those relationships that matter. Until the next time, take good care.